You mentioned something, and I'm not sure if I heard it right, but I'd love to hear you talk about it, about explosive. Well, a couple of fascinating things I didn't know, that speed wanes significantly quicker than strength. I'd be curious if you could talk about that, and also tell me where stamina fits in there, sort of
Hmm.
people's ability to maintain their metabolic capacity, their endurance. And then also, you said something about explosive movements being important for people who are older,
Mm.
I think, in
Yes.
regards to maintaining balance. And I was like, holy shit, I need to ask him about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Because there's a lot of debate in CrossFit that CrossFitters shouldn't be doing snatches, and of course we all think it's fucking idiocy. Like just lower the weight or just use a PVC, but everyone should be warming up and participating in explosive movements.
Yeah, I think just on that last point, I think like we spoke about with different tools and methods, like uh, I think Olympic lifting is fantastic, and it's just whether you've got the capacity to do that. And like you said, it's at what entry point are you coming into that lift? That's just coaching though. That's just good coaching. That's not the system. That's the individual one-on-one. Like the coach should be able to understand, like, hey, maybe this person can't even put their arm over their head. Why would you get them snatching? It's like, let's work on that first, and then we'll get them to that point. Or maybe it's a high pull. And it's like they can manage that. They just don't need to go overhead, but the action is still explosive. Let's get them doing that. They can do that component of that lift. That's just good coaching, right? It's not the system that's broken. Um, but I just on the elderly, a lot of the time they're the muscle fibers that atrophy first. So our type 2 muscle fibers, type 2X particularly, are the ones that will atrophy with age. And so that's actually more, there's been research done by Edith Cowan University to highlight that actually Olympic-based lifting or power-based movements steadily progressed into a program are really beneficial to prevent falls, because when that's what happens when an old elderly person falls, is they've lost that capacity to react with speed because they don't have that muscle fiber type anymore. It's atrophied. So let's maintain that. It's not like they're going to a lot of the time when you do endurance-based cardiovascular training, you will sort of lose those type 2X fibers. It's like a interference effect with that. So it's not like they're going to be doing 21K runs or long distance runs at that age. So it's actually probably better that they just do a like power-based training to ensure that those muscle fibers hang in there and they don't atrophy too fast. So that's the first one. I'm trying to remember oh yes,
Oh,
so decay rates. Sorry, Sevan.
yep.
Yep. So the decay rates is what you're speaking of. The speed dissipates faster than strength. So this is done by a researcher called Ishirin. I think he's got a paper out in like 2018. I'm not very good with remembering those things, but it was just talking about the decay rates of your physiology. So strength, you can pretty much not train strength for around 30 days, give or take, and you'll still manage to maintain that physiological expression of strength. You'll still stay strong. Speed, though, is anywhere from 3 to 5 days, give or take. So if you don't train speed specifically, then it'll dissipate or decay a lot faster than strength would. So if we're thinking of a fighter that's coming into fight camp, we could probably in the last 3 to 4 weeks of their camp not work on maximal strength anymore, but focus more towards the power speed end of the force velocity curve. And that means that they're going to maintain that output and that expression for the fight. They're also going to maintain their strength for the fight. The other thing is that if you're thinking of strength endurance, that's a really good point and something we're digging into a lot at the moment, because that's huge for our sport. If you think of them getting into a grappling exchange, and this is often something they've told us, they go for get into a grappling exchange for a minute or two, then they pop out of it, and then they need to start striking, and those arms are really heavy and fatigued. So when we look at our energy system testing on the assault bike, we do 3 tests. We do VO2 max test. Our sports scientist, Roman Foman, is a genius. And
Roman
he's
Foman.
Roman Foman, Russian Roman Foman. He's our crazy Russian scientist. He's a genius with energy system work. So he does VO2 max test, a maximal glycolytic power test, and then a maximal alactic power test. So he's looking at our 3 energy systems, all on the assault bike, also with gas analysis. Now, let's say you do a VO2 max test, and at the end of it, your score isn't that good, but your heart rate actually isn't peaking. It's not up towards that higher threshold. Why would that be? It's because your peripheral or your muscular system has let you down. It's gassed out first. So we're now not looking at a central adaptation or a cardiorespiratory issue. We're looking at a muscular's issue to be able to buffer that hydrogen, turn it into energy again, and keep going and going. So when we prescribe exercises in the gym for their energy system development, we might look at more peripheral adaptations versus central adaptations because that's what that particular fighter needs.
What a fascinating distinction. What a knucklehead that I didn't think of that before. Someone may have the metabolic capacity to go for 10 minutes as hard as they can, but they only have the muscular capacity to go 20 seconds.
That's why
And so you
CrossFit
have this,
works
and
out,
so you
right?
have this discrepancy. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got someone that could run really well, but maybe they fall behind on the lifting component of the WOD. Well, maybe that person needs to work more on the peripheral adaptations that they have. So the muscular adaptations within that section of the WOD, that's where they need to focus on, that strength endurance component. But
Yeah.
if someone's running capacity is not strong, then maybe their central adaptations aren't as good. So maybe that's what they need to work on. That could be a good way to put it into your CrossFit training, you know?
Even in this most recent event, we saw people racing to do the 30 clean and jerks with 225, and no one gassed out. What happened to all of them was they had no problem mentally grabbing the bar and bringing it to their shoulders, but at some point the weak link stopped working and people started failing the shoulder to overhead. But you
Mm-hmm.
could tell they had the gas and they had
Mm-hmm.
the strength for the first piece of the movement, the explosiveness, but it was that other piece that they had to
Yeah.
wait for it to, like the video game, to get its energy back up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're obviously we're obviously very good at particular movements, like maybe the pulling, you're going to be able to utilize your legs far more than your overhead press. Obviously, your overhead press, you're going to be doing a dip and drive. So we're using a component of your legs, but think of like a deadlift versus a squat jump or something like that. You're
Right.
just accessing more of your body during particular phases of movements. And so that's
Right.
why the clean and jerk is such a difficult one, even in Olympic sports. It's like, well, the overhead bits where most people fail, generally speaking, right?